What's up, guys? We're working on the C10 today. We're going to be lowering it down some more. It's already got 3-5 drop just on springs. It's not bad, but I want it lower, so we're going to go a total of 6-inch lower in the front, 7 in the rear. So I got new trailing arms from Jegs. Tubular trailing arms. I got bolt and C-notches, also Jegs. They just started selling these parts branded as Jegs. So they look like super good quality, good parts, good hardware. I like these. I don't know if the other ones do or not. I've never ordered any before, but they've got bump stops built into the notch. So it comes with bump stops to throw in. And then I got a 2-inch block kit from Speedway Motors. So we'll get all the rear tossed on. I ordered belltech 3-inch drop spindles for the front. There was a mix-up. Jegs says that they shipped them. FedEx says that a tracking label or shipping label was made, but they didn't have the parts. So I'm waiting to hear back from Jegs now on if those actually went out or not and what we have to do to get those here. So we'll get this back end done and go from there. So it's going to make everything easier being cut out, obviously the bed floor, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with taking the springs off, so undo your lower and upper perch, the mounts, and then there's a few things you'll have to take off. This plate, the C notch, will go where the existing plate is, so you can cut that 2 different ways. I'll show you that in a little bit, and then we'll have to get rid of this bump stop. Obviously, it's just riveted on also, so we'll notch that out and then get it bolted in. And then we'll go to the trailing arms, the block kit with the new bolts and everything. Okay, hopefully you're at a decent angle there. I'm gonna just remove the spring first, so the upper and lower, bolt on that, and then we'll get to taking the shock off, cleaning the frame off the bump stop, and then we'll get the rear end jacked up so that we can get our center line, and then we'll make a template for the C notch out of cardboard and get to cutting. Okay, so a lot of ways you can do this. You can just, if you have a nice chisel bit for your air hammer, you could just air hammer through all the rivets. I just notched out the bracket. It's a little bent now. I just notched out the bracket on both sides so I could get to it. Used a cutoff wheel on a just regular old angle grinder. And then if you can get your cutting wheel in there, you could just cut the heads off. I just used a grinder disc and ground them down, and then I'll just punch them through with the air hammer for that. I couldn't find my chisel bit, so this will be what most people will be working with anyway. So just grind it off and then ground them down. Okay, so on the C notch, the front part of the bracket you see there will be going right here, and the spring will mount up through it. So there's 4 rivets that hold this on. So there's the 2 lower and then 2 upper rivets. You can cut this bracket right here and then just grind these 2 off if you want. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and remove this. I have a brake line running through here. I'm redoing all the brake lines anyway that run to the back, so it doesn't matter. However, I do have one right on the back side of this rail, so you might keep that in mind when you get to cutting yours. Just double check both rails. The other side, I have fuel lines and the taillight wiring harness ran through there. So I'll have to move that stuff when I cut that side. And this side, I'm just gonna leave because I'm not using any of it anyway, so it doesn't matter for me, but keep that in mind on yours. All right, so I got that off. That's what you'll be left with. Just have to knock that other rivet out. Or both of them, I guess. And then we'll get a template made for the notch and get that, we'll get the axle jacked up so we can find center. the center line for that, and we'll get the template on here, mark where we need to mark, and get that solved. Okay, I didn't take shocks off. I jacked the rear end up, and that's close enough for me to be content with finding my center line for the axle. So if you find something straight, you can use a plumb bob or something. I'm not that worried about it. So find something to go off of the top of your axle to your center line. That'll be good enough for me. So we'll mark that, and then I'll get the template up there, find center on it, and then we'll mark the corners. I want to drill the top corners. That way it's an arch and you're cutting into the arch versus trying to cut right to the point and cutting past an 1/8 or 16th of an inch or whatever. So, all right, so that's the template. We've got it centered where I'm happy with it. So I'm just going to trace out the notch and drill the holes, and then we'll cut it out. Okay, so if you didn't understand what I was saying, I just wanted to drill a hole. I wanted to do one at each corner. This one's so close, though, I'm just going to run with it. But you'll have an arch here versus just cutting straight. So technically it should be stronger, but I just wanted to make sure I wasn't slicing, way past. All right, so I cut just inside my marks because well, I'd rather have cut too short than have cut too far, and that's how much I trust my template making. So, see how it fits, if we need to trim more. Okay, so we definitely need to trim more. Okay, so I got it almost in. There's still a little more trimming to do, but luckily I was looking at everything, and obviously you want your rear axle assembly centered. You want it to come up into the notch, or it'd be pointless to even have. But the front second bolt is supposed to, or second bolt hole is supposed to line up with the hole for the spring. And CPP's kit actually recommends you line that up, and that's what you go off of for your notch when you make a template. Jegs didn't come with anything, and I was just assuming that it needed to be centered. So luckily, I didn't finish trimming this out all the way. I'm only like an 1/8 inch off, so I'll be able to just take over and down a little bit more and slide it forward. Luckily, I didn't get everything set and my holes drilled before I found that. So that is where I'm at. That's what I'm going to do now. All right. Got it all bolted in. Used the shock bolt, or spring bolt, I'm sorry, to secure that. And then got everything else drilled, pulled in. Some gaps that I'm not a huge fan of, but we'll probably weld that up. So I'm going to move on to trying to get this old crusty trailing arm off and get the new one on there. Alright, so I got the trailing arm off. As you can see, it definitely needed replaced. There was even, so it was all starting to rot through. Because if it's not that bad, you can get away with pulling them apart and cleaning them all up, redoing them, putting new bushings in. Mine are too far gone for that. I just went ahead and pulled my shock up top, dropped the whole thing down. That way I didn't have to mess with getting the bracket off, because I'm redoing a shock relocation kit anyway. So we'll get it thrown together and show you guys. It's pretty self-explanatory, but we'll show you what order everything goes in case you're doing it. Okay, so I just want to go over something real quick that helps me a lot with these. A lot of people don't like doing these arms. They say they're a huge pain in the butt to get the back lined up if you've got the front end. I like to put the bolt in the front, just leave the nut loose on it, but start it so it doesn't fall out. And to get the axle where you need it, I've still got the other control arm on there. So if you've got a friend, they can pull this axle, throw a strap around it and pull it or something so that you can get your bolts lined up. I just throw a ratchet strap around the axle housing, run it up to my cross member. And that gets you close enough to do what you need to do. All right, so this side's finished up. Got the block in, springs mounted. The front bolt's not tightened, but aside from that, it's done. Your rear shock relocation bracket. You want the lip or bracket part on the back. Obviously the whole inside, depending on, they make a kit, and I don't know if it mounts the same in the back, but it actually puts the shock on the outside. So it's pretty straight up and down. That's what I wanted. I ordered the wrong one, so I'm just gonna run this for now. Doesn't matter. So that, trailing arm, lowering block, new hardware. I'm gonna finish the other side up, and then we'll move on to throwing the 3-inch drop spindles on the front. All right, got this side buttoned up. On this side, I did have to pull the axle back to get my U-bolts lined up. Disregard my custom ratchet strap fuel tank and fuel tank. That's all getting changed. That was just to get the 5-3 swap fired up, make sure everything was good. So it's ready to get lowered back down, and we'll see how she sits. All right, so we'll get it lowered down and see what it sits like. All right, cool. I'm pretty happy with that. I've got a super small back tire on. I had a buddy that just gave them to me. They were drift spare tires, so those got thrown out. I'll get a little bit more meat on there, and then it might tuck up a tiny bit better. I also don't have an adjustable track bar yet, so this side's sunk, and the other side will probably look really flush. Yeah. Cool. Pretty happy with that. All right, so went and got my belltech spindles, 3-inch drop spindles for the front. I had to run down to Jeg's warehouse and get them because they still said they shipped, and FedEx is saying they don't have them, so they did a stop and return on the package and then let me come grab a set. So still kind of a pain, but worked out. I've got the parts, so whatever. I can put them on now. All right, so I got take caliper off and hang it, zip tie it, bungee cord it, whatever you want to do, just so the stress isn't on the brake hose holding it up. Get your nut off of the spindle that holds the bearings on, holds the rotor, the whole assembly on. Back that off, pull it off, undid the tie rod nut, lower control arm on the ball joint nut, upper ball joint nut. So I'm gonna grab pickle fork, get that all apart, and then we'll be ready to toss a new spindle on. Okay, I lost the footage of the finishing the spindles up, but sorry for the gravel driveway, it doesn't do as much justice, but that's how it ended up sitting. Really happy with it overall. Looks good. Also, I'm an idiot and put the lower shock mounts on backwards, so I had to redo those. That's how it sits when it's done. Shocks are mounted. Did pour 15 on most of the frame I could get to. I've got a lot more to do still. Still need an adjustable panhard bar and to route all the brake stuff. I think I'm gonna do disc conversion in the back though still, and then working on exhaust and running brake lines and stuff to the rear now. So that's where we're at. I'll add in a couple pictures like on the road of the stance and how it worked out, but overall super happy with it so far.